in Orleans Town Hall. It is 5 p.m. I'll go around the table and welcome our new incoming, just sworn in a few moments ago, Mary Wright. Welcome. And Michael Herman, myself, Kevin Galligan, chair for the next 2 seconds. Meth Runyon, Mark Matheson, Town Manager Kim Newman, and Assistant Town Manager Mark Reel. Welcome everyone in the room. I'll call us to order. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Preamble?
We acknowledge with respect that we are inhabiting the traditional lands of the Wampanoag peoples who have always existed here. We value their roles as past, present, and future guardians of this land.
Thank you. Any announcements of the board or staff?
I had
Please, go ahead.
I think it was in the packet. They put it,
Yes.
Molly was able to put it in. It was just something I think I mentioned before, Beyond Pesticides group for a national organization since the 1980s. We were in contact with them when we first started doing our pesticide home rule petition. They've been following us. We now have 4 towns that have passed the pesticide home rule petition that we put together. And just on Saturday, Truro passed the fertilizer home rule petition. So now there are 6 towns that have passed the fertilizer home rule petition. So hopefully, again, maybe we'll see some regional action on this. We don't know. It's definitely a challenge with legislature and Beacon Hill. But we are persevering, if you will. But I just wanted to show people, I get asked a lot of what's the updates, what's going on, what happened. This is just a quick little update. You can read it in the packet if you'd like. And this went out to, they were so impressed with the 4 to 6 towns, they sent this to all communities in Massachusetts.
Nice.
And whether it's organizations or towns, they've had a couple dozen have responded for more interest. They direct them to our website. So a big shout out to Mia, who helped put together all those pages in the beginning when we first did this, which was a lot, and they're still on our website, and it's still consistently used, or we still send people there. So that's the update. And the second one is, I think I passed in your packets out to you. If you guys don't, if you haven't seen, in Veterans Park, they have installed the Indigenous marker. And if you remember at town meeting, the funding for Veterans Park had failed. And Bruce had gotten up and was kind of disappointed we hadn't included in the park a land recognition. The vote failed. Elisa Bignotti, Chris Kanega, Fast Thinking, did an amendment to the article, and we revoted it, and it passed. And the amendment was to include an Indigenous marker in the park. Years later, it's finally come to fruition. That was designed by Robert Peters of Wampanoag, and it's in the park. It's a medicine wheel. I think it's beautiful. It complements it really well. It's near the cove where there's a lot of history of Wampanoag and Nauset First Light peoples being on Town Cove. And there will be, just so everybody knows, I think everybody knows we're doing the Memorial Day ceremony at 10 a.m. on Memorial Day, which will start at the Cove. Then on June 6th, they're having another open house for the Korean War Monument. And then there will be the dedication of this monument on June 20th. So that's all I got.
Thanks so much, Michael. Any other announcements? Okay, I'll move to public comment. Anyone here for public comment? Please.
Tim Cunahan, 23 Herringbrook Way. I just wanted to read what I was going to say about Article 34 so that it's in the record. With the amendment to Article 19, town meeting funded the assessor's office to prepare for implementation of a residential tax exemption. This article focuses on having us, the voters, make 2 requests of the select board. Note that I use the word request, which is non-binding on the select board. First, we request that the town put together a 20-year long-range capital plan so that everyone can understand the impact of the town's capital programs on their long-term tax burden. Second, we request that the town implement a nominal residential tax exemption so that the Select Board will have a tool at hand with which they can moderate the impact of those plans on full-time residents. If you've been listening to the Finance Committee meetings and meetings regarding capital projects, you know that there are many people in town that are concerned about the amount of debt that Orleans residents will take on as its current plans are enacted. As the chair of the since disbanded Long Range Capital Planning Committee, I spent a considerable amount of time analyzing this issue. We developed a spreadsheet which highlighted those concerns before the town took back the responsibility and committed to undertaking that work. A 20-year capital plan is necessary towards understanding how our property tax bills will be affected. The town has yet to produce this work. This article also requests that the Select Board implement a nominal residential tax exemption. As I've said, the residential exemption is a tool that the Select Board can use to moderate the effect of capital projects on the tax burden of full-time residents. The goal of this article is to encourage the Select Board to make this tool available and give the assessors sufficient time to get it up and running so that it'll be available should they choose to use it. I've been surprised that the Select Board has shown such resistance to this residential exemption. It reduces the housing burden of many full-time residents. It works in favor of workforce housing, and it supports tax stabilization. Aren't these all goals of our new comprehensive plan? Anyways, please vote on this article. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Peggy, anyone online for public comment?
No hands raised.
Okay, I'll close public comment. Moving on to the next item entitled Annual Select Board Reorganization. And first up, and I'll take nominations for appointment of chair.
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Matt Runyon to be Chair of the Select Board.
Second?
Is there a second? I hear the second. Are there any other nominations for this position? I'll close nominations and just go right to a vote of our next chair. All in favor of voting Matt Runyon as our next chair, as he's smiling? And you can vote too, Matt.
I am going to vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, the meeting is now yours. You're welcome to take this prominent
No, let's not do
spot.
that.
or-
This is prominent enough. And before I get going, Kevin, I just do want to say to you that this last year was awesome. You did a great job, and
We had fun.
I really appreciate
You're welcome.
what you did.
Thank you all.
So next up is the vice chair. Do I hear any ideas and nominations?
Mr. Chair, I'd nominate Michael Herman to be the Vice Chair.
I would second that.
Any further discussion or nominations? Then by voice vote, all in favor, say aye. So that's 5-0. And next is the clerk.
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Mark Matheson as clerk. He has those clerk capabilities.
Does spelling count?
Do I hear a second? Okay, so it's been, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussions? Hearing none, then all in favor of Mark Matheson being clerk for the upcoming year, say aye.
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 Aye, so that's 5-0. Next up is Park Commissioner Chair. Park Commission Chair.
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Kevin Galligan to be Park Commissioner Chair.
Second.
Any further discussion? Then by voice, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Then we have the Community Preservation Committee rep for the next 12 months. Do I hear any nominations for that?
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Michael Herman to continue as a representative on the Community Preservation Committee.
Second?
Any further discussion? Then by voice, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And next, we have the Affordable Housing Trust representative for the next year.
Mr. Chair, we didn't chat Mary, but I think this would be awesome. I'm going to nominate Mary Wright to the position of Affordable Housing Trust Representative from the Select Board.
Second.
Any further discussion? Then by voice, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the last one is the Wastewater Management Advisory Committee representative for the next year.
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Kevin Galligan.
Second.
Further discussion?
Only thing to say, Meth, and I appreciate the support. You know, I kind of do love this project stuff, but in the future, Mary or others, you're more than welcome. It's a fun group, and certainly continue to stay engaged, Mary.
I don't know, I think this could be a lifetime.
No,
Succession planning.
please.
And we could talk about that, we could talk about that in 6 months, how's that? Right.
So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So, that reorganization is done for this year. And we'll move on to the presentation for tonight on the district improvement financing feasibility analysis. Amanda, are you going to lead us through?
Hi all. We actually have two guests joining us to present the findings of the District Improvement Financing Feasibility Study. Peggy's going to let them in. They're on Zoom. Victoria Stores of Stores Associates conducted the analysis, and Amanda Newmiller from Mass Development has been our partner throughout the process because the work was funded through a Mass Development Technical Assistance Grant, something that we pursued very intentionally because the 2022 Economic Development Plan identified kind of looking into economic development tools that are available to us to explore, and the grant gave us the resources to find out whether it's actually viable for our community. So I'll turn it over to Victoria and Amanda.
Are you all set, and can you hear us and everything?
I can certainly hear you. This is Victoria Stores.
Then it's all yours.
Let's give Amanda Newmiller a moment also to confirm. She's the Mass Development Representative, and her role in all of this has been truly vital. From my screen, it appears
I
that
think she's
having
having
a technical
technical
challenge.
difficulties.
Yeah.
She had emailed saying
She
was
looks
having
frozen
trouble.
from here.
Yeah.
Well, I think Amanda will forgive us if, out of respect for the time of the select board, I begin. When she comes live again, we'll certainly welcome her in so you can hear about mass development. And, you know, she talked back in March a little bit about why this project was compelling to them. So now that we have the tech out of the way, my name is Victoria Stores. I'm the president and founder of Stores Associates. It's a development finance and economic development consulting firm. I celebrated, Amanda, you're here, 5 years in business, and am happy, if her sound is working, to let Amanda introduce herself and frame the project from Mass Development's point of view before I pick up again.
Thank you, Victoria. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Apologize for the technical difficulties here. Good evening. My name is Amanda Newmiller. As you may have already heard, I'm Director of Site Planning at Mass Development. Mass Development is the state's development finance agency and land bank, and our agency works with businesses, nonprofits, banks, and municipalities to stimulate economic growth across the Commonwealth. We do that in many ways, one of which is by providing comprehensive technical assistance through our Real Estate Services Technical Assistance Program, supported by our real estate planning staff. And through a combination of in-house expertise and contracts with consultants, Mass Development collaborates with municipal officials, planners, local stakeholders, and others to address site-specific and district-wide economic development challenges. And through the Community One Stop for Growth this past year, the Town of Orleans was awarded technical assistance to explore the feasibility of DIF in your community. And we have had the pleasure of working with several of your staff, including Amanda and other finance and planning staff to help get the data necessary to put this feasibility work together. And with that, I will turn it over to Victoria. And again, my apologies for the technical difficulties.
Thank you, Amanda. I have now shared my screen as well. I understand that the slides for tonight's presentation are in the packet that was distributed to the select board, but for everyone who is joining remotely or in the audience, I'm hopeful that they will be able to see this as we go through our time together this evening.
Just so you know, we don't see it yet.
My system says that I am screen sharing.
We see that message too, but no first slide yet.
Okay, so let me try that again. The truth is, I literally do this all the time.
Just love technology.
Is it still
There you
nothing?
go.
There we go.
There it is.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Thank you for giving me the feedback. So I'm Victoria Storrs, president and founder. Just last month celebrated 5 years in business. I am a woman-owned firm looking to grow this year. And I am very happy to be invited back to present to the select board. I met a few of you when we were all meeting with the Economic Development Committee and then with the Planning Board back in March during that spell of fabulous spring weather. So it's good to see you again. And it's a pleasure to meet those of you who weren't able to attend either of those meetings. For those who did and who have had a chance to look through my slides or the report, at that time, as a feasibility consultant, I gave a preliminary recommendation finding that in fact DIF is feasible for the town of Orleans, and by feasible I mean it is likely to be an effective tool for implementing your economic development goals. So I am here tonight because we completed the analysis and I am reconfirming that finding with a little bit more detail and a little bit more length than what I can tell you. What I'd like to do this evening is walk through the slides and then ask questions because what I find when for those of you who are new to DIF or have not, like I have, been rolling up your sleeves for a couple of years on this, I do hope to answer the technical questions in advance and then bring this session, my time with you, to a close to have you guys discuss and think through the recommendations and what this tool could potentially do in the town. So the beginning, as Amanda Newmiller from Mass Development said, is really the town has spent a lot of time over the past couple of years planning to revitalize your downtown and your village center. This is the genesis of why we're here tonight, that this is a goal that the town has and it is shared with the community and gotten the community feedback. And in fact, the term is that you have engaged with the town and conducted research that concluded that the town is in fact poised for growth. You developed a comprehensive plan, an economic development plan, and a downtown housing overlay district, all of which are currently being implemented. Specifically with the economic development plan, increasing staff capacity was one of the major goals that has already been implemented and is ongoing. You've begun microgrants and assistance and other support, other reachable tasks to help businesses grow and thrive and choose to be in Orleans rather than in any other community within the Cape or southeastern Massachusetts. And exploring DIF was one of the goals, with the recognition that you had at the time that some of them were going to need money beyond what the town felt that it was comfortable allocating from the general fund in order to provide the resources to those other goals in your plans. You applied for and were awarded the Mass Development Grant. We presented our findings back on March, and we've introduced our team leaders. And I do want to thank, in addition, the staff from assessing, finance, planning, DPW, all of whom we spoke with either on a video conference or in person, and their willingness to engage with this team, to provide their insight, and to talk about how they see that the goals for the town are one of the major reasons why I was able to reconfirm my feasibility. The team that the town has working on town goals right now is an extremely important element in the feasibility. So just to be very clear, the purpose of the presentation is to confirm my preliminary finding that DIF can make a meaningful contribution to the town's economic development and growth goals. And also, I'm here to provide information and analysis to help the select board determine whether or not to move forward with implementation. This is a decision that is up to you. I'm here to give you additional information and encourage you to engage and understand. So the outline of the presentation is a little bit on why I confirmed the preliminary findings that the town met the feasibility criteria for this kind of a tool. And then I'll take you briefly through a little bit of a DIF 101, which is the technical part. Will seem familiar to some, but it's a good refresher to get us all on the same page. And then bring you back into the revenue estimates, which is why I say that supports my finding that DIF could make a meaningful contribution to your goals. So the first thing is the match between this particular tool and what this tool is designed to accomplish and the goals that the town has already established. So here is just a quick summary. You want to maintain and expand your organizational capacity within the town for supporting economic development, for supporting vitality and business growth and thriving. Some of those goals specifically need the funding, and I touched on them already a little bit. Establish and manage an economic and tourism development fund. That's a goal that's a task that is actually well suited to using DIF as an implementation tool. Continuing to provide and expanding the technical assistance to businesses, especially very small businesses where someone might be great at running the business, but trying to get grants, trying to navigate interactions with the state is a role that town economic development staff can play to help people navigate some increasingly complex environment that we sometimes find ourselves in as business owners. Surveys, trying to find out what their need is, helping them obtain grants. And also one of the things that district improvement financing specifically cares about is training grants, workforce training grants becomes a tool that could be used. These are tasks and goals. They're the kinds of projects that district improvement financing was designed to address. They are goals for the town. In addition, the placemaking and mobility, crosswalks, streetscapes. We took a walk around the town back in March and saw the traffic patterns and the way you can move around. And the improvements to getting from the rail trail into the village center is also one of the goals that this tool is designed to help by providing funding. So these are the economic development goals that we were very generally focused on. The feasibility is partly, are your goals appropriate for this tool? If you said we want a $100 million highway fund, then there's other things that you could do. And that's an extreme example, but the kinds of goals that you have in your plans are reachable with this tool. So that's one of the concepts of matching the implementation tool with the goals that the town has already established. So I developed 5 feasibility criteria, the prior planning activities and documents that you already have, the fact that you're already implementing them is one of the criteria, the engagement showing support for community, support within the community for new growth and new investment. And you've had the conversation about what and where, which is really very, very important because sometimes if you start with the tool, the community doesn't understand as well what it is that you're trying to accomplish. You've already done that step and had that conversation. That's a very important feasibility factor. the demonstrated support from the elected leaders so far going for the grant, inviting us here to speak with the boards and to speak with you tonight. I said the staff support and resources, not just in economic development, but throughout the other town departments, have been very important to the feasibility study, and I would expect that if the town were to choose to move forward, you would continue to see that degree of understanding and cooperation. And the last one is the last part of the presentation, which is, measurable, meaningful contribution to funding for desired projects, a match between the revenues likely to be available to be captured and the costs of the projects that you want to fund. Again, the example, if you needed a $100 million capital project, this tool would not give you a meaningful financial contribution. But when you're talking about the other things that we just went through, then it's a better match between the two. So just to let you know where we're going with this presentation, the possible next steps that the town could undertake are to apply for an implementation grant and actually begin the implementation process, which would be designing, creating a document, making more estimates, making some policy decisions. If the town were to choose to move forward implementing, the first revenues could be collected as early as 2028. There are two important calendar aspects with this tool, because it's a real property tax based tool. When assessed value increases from new investment or new growth, it takes a little while for that to be reflected and then for those revenues to be generated. So we've taken into consideration in these scenarios that date, and again, that's entirely up to the town. The major projects that are planned are likely to be completed in the near term, existing patterns of growth, and just a little bit of a preview, cumulative contribution to your economic funds of your economic goals of just over $824,000 within 5 years even if only at capturing 50% of available funds. That's a basic assumption. So that takes us to, well, this is meaningful. $824,000 is meaningful for assisting businesses. And given what DPW said, some of the street work and streetscape work can actually be done within a reasonable budget as well. So these were some of the comparison points. So I'll take you quickly through DIF 101 and then come back to the revenues and invite questions. So every time I give this presentation or something similar in another state, I find it so much easier to begin by telling everyone what DIF, District Improvement Financing, is not. It is not a new tax. It is not a special assessment, and it's not a tax increase or rate increase. It is a method of capturing tax revenue and directing it to specific purposes, such as economic development, such as your sidewalks, your streetscapes. And it is a locally controlled tool, locally controlled, to help communities attract and encourage desired growth and new private investment. So I like to call it a virtuous cycle. We begin with private investment. That generates an increased assessed value. That's the new growth component that your assessor measures every year for you. The increased assessed value leads to increased tax revenues without a tax rate increase. So the parcel on which there has been investment, the tax is increased, but the rate does not increase, and other parcels do not experience a tax increase because their neighbor invested in the property. The increased tax revenues are captured by a DIF plan and program to provide funding for public projects and possibly financial assistance for private projects. There's certain rules, some facade improvements and things like that can come in if they're publicly approved. And those kinds of things are very important in downtowns. The available project funding as the public projects begin to be implemented are showing a clear community commitment to targeted growth. The establishment of a DIF district in a particular area is a very clear message that this is where you want the investments to come and the development program, your written goals, are also a clear message about the kind of development that you do want to have, especially important when you are reactivating an existing downtown and village center space. And that community commitment then encourages additional private investment, and we start the cycle again every year. So I wanted to show a little bit of a preview. When I developed the financial feasibility, I looked at a few different scenarios for different kinds of growth. And this is just a summary. This is the mid-level or base case medium growth. It's based on the general small investment rate that you've been experiencing continuing, and then some little bit of catalytic projects, for example, the revitalization of the Governor Prince parcel, and then some other projects. And the medium DIF revenues are expected to be, as I said, about $824,000 within 5 years and $2.8 million within 10 years if you're capturing 50% of what could be available. I generally see between 50 and 75% captured, so I went with a very, very modest 50% here for you to review. The way DIF works is you're only capturing the tax revenues generated by the new growth. Someone adds a story to a building, someone expands an existing parcel. 100% of the revenues that are currently being generated by the current assessed values still go into your general fund. So you're not dipping into the general fund, you're capturing a portion of what could be coming that's new. The basic steps that you use to enable yourself to capture a portion of what's coming new are to articulate the purpose and select an area, engage leadership, assessing, finance, planning, economic development. This has been part of the feasibility process. So if you were to implement, you're some ways well along because of all the work that the DIF team has been doing on the ground. But you start out by articulating a purpose. Your economic development plan and comprehensive plan are very solid planks under that, very solid groundwork. You identify known and desired public goals within the district. Again, this was, a lot of it was done in draft form for the feasibility study. Support for site development, for economic development programs, for certain kinds of livability infrastructure, moving people around. And what makes DIF a little bit special, I highlighted in gold here, which is you also evaluate the private investment potential. What could be built or revitalized in your selected district? And if it is, would the estimated revenues, the new taxes on the new growth component, would they meaningfully contribute to funding the public projects that the community wants to fund? You also go through a process establishing management and reporting, because this is a local tool, locally managed, and you pass local legislation to implement. So those are the basic steps to get you through evaluating whether or not this is a tool you want to use, thinking about how you would use it, determining whether in fact it's feasible. And what we're here tonight is to say, yes, as a development finance analyst, I think that it's feasible. I think it makes a meaningful contribution. The decision is up to the village. Excuse me, I was on the phone with the village early. The decision is up to the town of Orleans. Did I accidentally skip? Okay, I accidentally skipped a step here. Okay. So, and this is especially for people who haven't become familiar with DIF, especially visitors to this meeting. I call this the DIF mantra. It's an economic development tool, and there's important things to understand about it. DIF plays well with others. It's a tool that can be used along with grants, business improvement districts, tax-exempt bonds, even tax increment financing. So It's something that you can use alongside other efforts that you are making for town prosperity and growth. It is not a new tax, a special assessment, or a tax increase. What it is it lets a community dedicate a funding stream to public activities that attract and encourage desired growth and investment. And it does that within a district. So you're drawing potential revenue from within an established district, and you're making the public investments within that district. And so it's tying those two together. The public funding for the public projects is coming from the district that is going to benefit the most. And this is helpful in a large community or a community with a downtown where you don't have everyone living within the downtown, and they might be wondering, well, what's going on here? So you're tying the location of the revenue generation with the location of the projects. And I do want to take a moment here and say, it's not part of the mantra, but I know that East Orleans is also a very important center for the town. This is a tool that you can use in more than one part. So if the town opted to implement in the downtown and village center and you had success, you could use it in another part of the town. And in fact, I'm working with a client in Connecticut that is going to do just that. And finally, the last of the DIF mantra is it does not replace ordinary zoning, budgeting, spending processes. The select board, the departments, the town meeting, the legislative body is still controlling the zoning, the tax revenues collected within the district. So the way that DIF works, and I'll go through this quickly but we can certainly come back to it, is you're capturing revenue from the assessed value increases. You establish the original assessed value, let's say of January 1, 2026. You measure the changes against January 1, 2027, and identify those changes, those increases in assessment that are a result of new growth. This is something that your assessor is doing every year anyway. So it takes advantage of a process that the town is already undertaking. If it's new growth, a portion of the tax revenues from that assessed value can be captured. Those become called DIF revenues. The town decides the method of capturing how much. There's various ways of doing it. There isn't a set way except that it meets what you want to accomplish. The DIF revenues then fund projects. You've identified them in a master plan, so it's set forth. It's not, there's a very important, these are our goals and this is what we're going to do element. And I also do note, because I was there shortly after that catastrophic snowstorm, unused money that is not dedicated to public projects can in fact be returned to the general fund. And that was an instance of a moment when a community might need to say, wow, we'd really like to do this, but we had a catastrophic event. And it's not a lockbox unless you're contracted to spend the money on something. And that's also an important concept with DIF. So the process is define a district, identify potential public projects and private investments, and estimate the new tax revenues. All of these were done in draft form in the feasibility analysis. So the next steps that would be taken would be to create policies. How much revenue would you capture? What's the financial plan? How long will you use the tool? You adopt it through the local process, and then you manage it over time in parallel to what your finance and assessing teams are already doing and your DPW. And I've worked with communities who have done this, and they pay attention. It's not like having a second job. The DIF statute is flexible enough. I really do believe that when it was revised about 10 years ago, the intent was to make it easy to implement by people who already have full-time jobs and are already working very hard. So that is the brief DIF 101. I have a couple of slides on the revenue estimates, and then I want to answer your questions and let you talk about, raise issues that you have. So I talked earlier about the feasibility criteria, such as having done your planning, having done your outreach, staff capacity and understanding of the tool, support from the elected leaders to explore this tool. Those are all there. And then the last one is this making a meaningful financial contribution? So the goal with this is the analysis, and you've been through the report, this is really the meat of the report, is, well, how do we know, how do we make an estimate of the new private investment that would generate the new growth? What could actually happen if within the town of Orleans? And so I divided it into 3 categories of new growth. I called it organic new growth, which is what your assessor is already measuring. It's about 1.5% to 2.5% a year. I used a very low 1.25%. So that's going to happen whether you use DIF or not. So I say, 1.25% of your total assessed value is a gradual increase in the amount of new growth. I sat down and we talked over significant new growth going through parcels that had recently changed hands, submitted plans, talked about plans to add a story, to redevelop it, to make it bigger. Parcels that are vacant and have been recently acquired and could be adaptive reuse. And I call that investment that might be waiting in the wings for a clear signal from the town that the downtown and the village center is going to benefit from new public investments that would then make creating and owning a business and growing a business in that area more appealing. So that's number 2. That's a mid-level new growth from new investment. And then there's the catalytic new growth. For example, the Governor Prince redevelopment is really significant. Also, I pulled from your downtown overlay district, there was a conceptual redevelopment of Post Office Square. And if that were redeveloped, and we didn't talk to the owners, and naturally that's a really important part of this, but if a site like that were redeveloped, that would be absolutely catalytic. Catalytic in terms of the effects on the community, but also catalytic in the amount of new growth that would generate tax revenue. So it could be financially very, very meaningful for the economic development goals. Taking a look, so I guess I've got a 3x3 box. I've got organic, significant, and catalytic new growth. But I also know that when you're making estimates, you can't say, well, this is what's going to happen. So I said, well, let's say the base case is medium, the most likely based on recent trends. And then I have in the report, growth slows down or things really are going gangbusters and growth accelerates. We'll talk about the medium right now. The basic assumptions are your tax rates going up at about 2.5%, consistent with past practices. 50% of eligible new revenues just from the new growth are captured. Just the organic new growth, assuming a 1.25% increase in assessed value, would yield about 357,000 in revenues in 5 years, and up to 1.5 million over 10 years, just from what's going to happen based on your existing growth trends. The significant new growth are parcels that could be developed, the waiting in the wings, could add about 14.9 million to taxable value, and yield a little bit lower in 5 years, because I assume that it'll take them a little bit to get going, about 176,000 over 5 years, and closer to, and just over 450,000 by year 10, added to the organic new growth. And then the catalytic projects did a more detailed study of what the as-built assessed values could be for those. Estimated 31.4 million increase added to the taxable assessed value, and that is estimated in the medium scenario to yield just under $300,000 in 5 years and closer to $900,000 in 10. So these are where the various components of the revenues are coming from. And This is a reprise. This is the annual tax revenues. So one of the important things about DIF, we still have this gray area here. The deposit to the general fund is still 100% of everything you're getting right now. And I assume 50% of the new growth, 50% of the tax revenues from the Governor Prince coming online. So about $280,000 by year 5, and then the annual increase as growth continues to 1.9 million in year 30, and that's the annual, that's not the cumulative. The cumulative is the graph that we looked at a little bit ago, which shows that 824,000 medium by year 5, 2.8 by year 10, over 10 million by year 20. And this is assuming that you don't have any more significant or catalytic projects, you're just a little bit on autopilot, and $25 million that could be captured by year 30, while continuing to fund the general fund at the levels it's currently experiencing. And in summary, over 10 years, 2.8 million could be dedicated to the DIF projects, 46 million is still going to your general fund. And to start to close out the potential projects to be funded with those monies, which is where the other half of the match, without the cultural hub, which I know you're thinking about, but it's in the very early stages of understanding what it could be, where it could be. There's approximately $13.2 million of projects, some of which are hard infrastructure, like those sidewalks and crosswalks. Some of those are softer, such as the financial assistance. And so this is what I talk about there being a match. If we want to go back here, by year 20, it's 10.3 million versus an estimated 13.2 million of projects. And one thing about DIF is you don't actually have to prove that you can fund every dollar of every project. It's a tool that goes along with the grants that you might get, especially something transportation oriented. You might have MassDOT. And that's where it's a meaningful match. So some things that I've mentioned during the presentation, the Economic Development and Tourism Fund, a downtown plan update for the Village Center that came up in the Economic Development Committee when we were in front of it in March. Planning processes for a cultural hub can be paid for with the DIF revenues. That's an economic development tool or study that could be funded. Direct technical assistance to businesses, and that can include paying for staff to provide that if DIF were implemented and the town made that decision. DIF funds can go to pay for staff as well. Transportation consultant study, traffic studies, engineering studies can be done with DIF revenues. These are all important components of economic development and revitalization. The walkability and safety infrastructure can be funded. These are some of the things in your economic development plan, things that came up when we were taking our tour with the staff through the center of the downtown and the Village Center, and also came up when I met with DPW. Improvements to Depot Square Park and an improved connection to the rail trail to bring people into the downtown and the Village Center to spend their money, and possibly improving the connection with Old Colony Road and some infrastructure, but also engineering studies. And I want to pause on the studies because I know this looks study heavy. That can be one of the more difficult things to get grants for. And this is one of the things that DIF can be effective for, because you're getting the money a little bit earlier. It's cheaper to fund a study, but it moves you along to where you can then think about a major capital investment, that you can think about your grants, you can think about capital improvement planning. These underpinnings, these planks, studies and understandings can be funded. And that is the end of the presentation, so I'm going to take a sip of water and a deep breath. Thank you for holding your questions. I very much appreciate that.
Thank you. Do you want to step in here at all, Amanda?
No, if you Victoria's happy to answer any questions, or if you have any thoughts about, maybe Amanda can talk about next steps too, if that's appropriate.
Okay, so open to the board for questions? Any hands raised? Kevin?
Thanks so much, Victoria. This is Kevin Galligan, and I'm trying to equate this, and you didn't actually put a statute or reference to where this comes available for us to adopt, as you said, at town meeting. But one thing that I'm kind of curious about is, as you mentioned, leveraging other grants, and I was hoping to see, does this, and this is the question, does this work similar to our Community Preservation Act funds? For example, we have fortunately in a couple of instances used CPC to actually leverage those dollars and support debt that then actually can make a big, big difference, and has just recently kicked off a improvement in recreation field. So could this money be used for debt service?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
It's authorized under Massachusetts General Law 40Q. I have a copy on my desk.
Great.
So that's the authorization. There's still some old versions of 40Q floating around. The current version does not require state approval. If you see state approval required, cross out that paragraph. It's entirely local. But yes, it certainly has been used for debt service if you're doing a major infrastructure project that you are bonding for on a tax-exempt basis. In addition to this plan, and you see this in the report, Mass Development has published a series of DIF education tools. And at the back of the DIF guide, there is a section on the different kinds of tools that can be used with it. And specifically, if you are issuing tax-exempt bonds, and all or some of the proceeds are going to a DIF project in a master plan, you actually do get a little bit more flexibility in your repayment structure than you otherwise would. So there's a few little tweaks that you can make to a tax-exempt bond issue if this tool is involved.
Thanks.
So more flexibility than just issuing regular GO bonds? How
Well,
does that become more flexible?
It has to do with basically deferring some of the payment of principal. So structuring within the bond, you can issue revenue bonds or GO bonds and pledge some DIF revenues to either of those forms of debt that you're allowed to do. But the deferred principal can be very helpful if this tool is involved, because as I said, it takes a little while to get the revenue going from the new growth,
Right.
but your needs for your sidewalks might be immediate.
So
And
what's
so
the
you've got a little bit of breathing room.
So what's the distinction between a DIF and a TIF then? Because you talk about tax increment, and in some of the definitions, tax increment says, well, actually, that's somehow projects that are going straight to a private developer, which I don't remember ever seeing, but that's okay. I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference in terms of how this operates, except that this doesn't sound like it's as airtight in terms of how the authorization to do a tax increment financing as opposed to this. Am I right?
Well, I don't know that I'd use the word airtight, but it is a great question, and I'm really glad that you asked it. They're entirely separate tools. DIF is not intended to reduce real property taxes for a private investment.
Okay.
So, for example, up in the city of Amesbury, I worked on a DIF project. They had tax increment financing as well, and they were able to use the two tools together. But because a portion of the taxes were reduced through the use of TIF, tax increment financing, there was a little bit less on the DIF revenues, but the DIF revenues were still meaningful. And in fact, the city went on to use the tool again. So the two are absolutely different, because TIF is a way of providing temporary financial assistance to a private developer to level the playing field. And if not for that temporary financial assistance, that project would be financially unfeasible. They couldn't do it. So you reduce their costs early on by reducing their real property taxes. District improvement financing can go cheek by jowl with it, acknowledging there's a little bit of a reduction in potential revenues to capture. But its goal is really to get that funding stream to the public projects, to attract that new private investment to begin with. It is difficult because tax increment financing in some form, this tool, this revenue value capture tool, is available in 48 states, and most of them call it TIF.
Okay.
But here it's district, which I think is actually useful.
So on the district part, is there anything, I mean, I guess I was trying to figure out the reason to establish the district as opposed to just in our own mind saying, okay, we're going to just capture a portion of this revenue, right? Because we could sort of do this without calling it the district financing, but the reason to do it is because of the state, because of the grants that are available to help us do the variety of tax or technical assistance and other grants which say, okay, we're now recognizing that you are proactively trying to segregate these funds, and therefore you are viewed as a better investment for economic development advancement. Am I getting this right?
That's a good way to put it. You know, ultimately the grantor makes that decision, but when a DIF is established, it is demonstrating a local commitment, not just to the businesses that you want to grow, but to the state or the federal regulators and people who issue the grants or the support or approve you for a subsidized loan through a state revolving fund. A local share and a local commitment, skin in the game, is really critical. But the other reason, you know, even absent that, if you're not going for those outside funds, which I don't know any communities who've used this tool who haven't, but is, you know, as you know, because, especially with town meeting, it's very, very active, almost direct democracy. There's a push-pull, I think, with every budget in every community between, can we fund the crosswalks as hard infrastructure, or are we going to make an improvement to the school? And when you're using just the general fund for all of these, it can be very challenging to set money aside for economic development and for revitalization projects because the other demands on the general fund are so important. And DIF is a tool to say proactively, this is important enough that we are going to do it. And we're just not even going to think about that money as part of the general fund. We are going to dedicate it to these goals and communicate that dedication. And, you know, I think in practice, it does help those annual budget conversations.
Mm-hmm. And so it's, and then again, it's that distinction between dedicated and pledged. Pledged being that you cannot use it for anything else versus dedicated where you've said the intention that that's what you want to do. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
You're very welcome.
One quick one.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, Victoria, while you were responding to Mary, I did a quick search in terms of other small rural communities. And for example, Easton, the town of Easton, kind of adopted this in 2019 in parallel with their Five Corners sewer infrastructure. So it really does enhance, and as Amanda knows, how many times did we visit our Economic Development Committee of sewer impacts, and this actually can be very complementary to say, we know you've been hit with these impacts, here we are to actually help really bring something meaningful.
Yeah, and currently, the dollars that a lot of other communities on the Cape use for economic development, the meals and rooms tax, is currently being used for the sewer project. So there isn't that kind of pool.
Go ahead.
That's
something to.
If I may
Yeah, oh, please.
also address that, as it happened, I was the consultant who prepared the DIF for the town of Easton several years ago.
Nice.
And in addition to the sewer, which was the driving force, the town did put in their development program that they were going to fund some significant green space initiatives around some of the lakes and ponds at that in that area of the town. They wanted more paths and bike trails. So it wasn't just the sewer. It was a very thoughtful process that the town of Easton underwent to think about what is it going to be like to live down there in addition to having a clean environment through wastewater. what are the other connections that we're going to do? And so I think it's a good example for you guys, because you're also thinking very much about how people are moving around, how they're enjoying what you do have in the village, and how to encourage those businesses.
Michael, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great presentation. Very interesting. It's, I mean, I have to get my head around it, but from what I'm understanding, it's just setting aside a dedicated revenue stream for downtown based on our future growth, or district with downtown. And I guess I'm thinking back, the large investment the town made in all the taxpayers in the whole town for the sewering downtown, that we're expecting increased revenues that were going to come back to the whole town when they made that decision and funded it. I know we're after now, and I definitely think that a portion should be dedicated to downtown because they have had large costs and connections and betterments too. So I do like this idea of having a dedicated revenue stream. I mean, the 50%, I guess my questions are, if we adopt this, or how do we adopt it as a select board? Is it a percentage that we're able to adjust easily? Is it something we're going to get stuck locked into? I just hate to see us get involved in this thing. We've seen other revenue streams where once they've been locked, that's it. It's not easy to change them or adjust them. And I just want to make sure, because we're doing a lot of projections of the future, and it sounds like a lot of money, and it's all well and good. I'd hate us to be in need as a town in other uses and be stuck in doing something and not having that flexibility. Does that make any sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And in fact, Amanda Converse brought that up when we were looking at the early results. What kind of flexibility might the town have? So I use a straight 50% capture for simplicity. What the DIF statute says is that the town, if they are, establishing a plan and a district and going through with this, you decide how much you're going to capture and when. So some of the things I talk about in the report are, well, you could capture 50% for your whole 30 years, or you could do it for 15 years. You could capture 75% for a few years and then step it down. You could have a dollar amount that you want to capture for a few years. What the important thing is that you think about what it is that you want, and you establish, okay, we're not going to let ourselves get locked in. We could have a formula. We are going to take, 75% up to $1 million. And then after a few years, and with town meeting, it's not easy, you can amend. And one reason to amend it would be if you did, in fact, have tremendous growth in assessed value and a lot of revenues, and more revenues than you wanted to dedicate to these projects, then you would go back to town meeting with an amendment to the plan and say, actually, we're going to step it down.
So these are the decisions that we would make in the next phase of the project if you guys give us the direction to continue to move forward with this.
Okay, Kim.
Thank you. So this presentation is based upon a recommendation from 2022 in an economic development plan at that time. Part of what we committed to do a couple years ago is to bring forward options to the select board about things that are available out there in the big, beautiful world that we could consider here in the town of Orleans when the timing is right for those things. This analysis is fascinating, honestly, particularly around the growth and the detail, and I really appreciate all of that. I mean, I think that is actually something that's been on our mind lately about really what does growth look like. So that is a value just in itself. I don't think that we are considering this, we certainly didn't consider it as part of our FY27 budget, and I don't know that we would consider it in 28, but I do think that it's something now that we know about. Much like when the town previously approved separate revenue streams through stabilization accounts for vehicles and equipment and facilities, this is sort of the same. The only caveat here, of course, is that, to Michael's point, it siphons off money from new growth that we might otherwise need for operations. But I do think, having done a TIF in another community and knowing the value of these, the adoption of something like this does send, when the timing is right and the town is ready the adoption of this will send the flag out to the business community, the big investors, that this is a town that's looking for controlled growth in that way, and that will be a willing partner to incentivize their, consideration of our community. So I think this is excellent, happy to see it, but I want to make sure, when Ryan's doing his job, he knows that this isn't something that we're doing today, but it's certainly, these are the types of things we want to look at in the future that really could help us if we need to start finding ways to set aside money for streetscapes, and we're in a position to be able to do that, or, help us incentivize debt payments on other projects we're already doing. So,
One added thing, I just, my ears perked up, Victoria, and I think Amanda from Mass Development, you guys really have tried to support a lot of the changes we're experiencing in workforce, particularly our small businesses. I mean, they're really severely impacted by Amazon and all the other online delivery companies. But the other thing that's unique about our little seaside community is, we have fishermen who, bring, their catch in at really some wonderful landing spots that we have. And they've tried desperately over the years to maintain a storefront, whether it be a fish market or whatever. And, I found your mentioning of workforce training programs really, kind of unique to help us in that regard, because we don't want to leave them behind. We really don't. I don't want to, and if you did look at our planning guidance and programs, Victoria, we've adopted what's called ban on formula shops. So we will never have a McDonald's, we'll never have a Chili's, but we will have a mom and pop that may be, lobster fishing and coming in to sell their wares. So I really want to see that this, if we adopt it, could encourage that activity, because it's really being ignored by the general, way that we act.
We really need, I have one short question, but we really need to sort of move along here. The revenue projections that are based on the new growth, is that townwide new growth, or is that new growth within the district that you define?
Just within the district.
Just a quick. Is there any, if we're going to look at this in the future, it would be great to see any analysis of what towns have received in grants versus their growth, just some kind of understanding of the real catch, of course, is these grants and these matching grants and what might be out there. How does that fit into, because these numbers, of course, look great, but will we get those grants? Have you seen those grants as kind of incentives for people to start these programs, but have gone down over time, like most grants do sometimes get people on board, but then, or do you see that these grants will continue? It's hard. I know it's a hard thing to know, but it's like with the CPC. We saw grants matching 100%. Now it's down to, I think, 16% is matching grants. So, I'm just trying to understand, because you're talking 10, 20, 30 years out on these projections. Do we believe grants are is Easton continuing to increase on getting grants?
You put your finger on one of the challenges of this tool, because it's entirely local. There is no central database, aside from Amanda Newmiller, who I'll turn this over to in a moment. So I can't speak to what communities are getting 5 and 10 years out. It's only really started to be adopted in this form in 2019, so it's early days. But I really couldn't speak toward to how other kinds of grants might grow or be lesser over that time frame. Certainly, adopting this tool is highly unlikely to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Victoria. And Amanda, do you have things you would like to tell us?
Just echoing Victoria, it is a little difficult to project out, 10, 20, 30 years here. And given that it's a relatively new tool in the Commonwealth, we are working to understand it as well. Given that it's locally implemented and locally tracked, we're doing the best we can as a state agency to kind of keep our finger on the pulse and continuing to update our guidance and our resources for communities. And we will continue to do that to hopefully answer some of these questions as we see communities evolve in the way that they use DIF. And just to kind of close things out, I guess, in terms of next steps. Generally speaking, if the town would like to move forward, as Victoria noted, the next step would be to flesh out an actual DIF plan, which would define things like your term and the captured increment and things of that nature, and define those definitively. In terms of this existing grant, our scope of work was specifically for feasibility, and so we have completed that by virtue of completing the analysis and presenting it here to you tonight. Should the town wish to move forward into the implementation phase, that is something that Mass Development can also provide technical assistance for through actually the same program that funded the work presented here tonight, the Real Estate Services Technical Assistance Program. That is run through the Commonwealth's Community One Stop for Growth, which is currently open and accepting applications if that is something that the town would like to pursue further.
Thank you. Are we all done?
Yeah, this was great.
This was really good, and thank you, Amanda. Look forward to revisiting this at some point. So, with that, and Amanda and Victoria, thank you for
Thank you both so
your
much.
presentation.
All right. Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you.
So moving on now to the 72 Tonsett Road. You gonna do that, Kim?
Sure. I think Mike is online too, but he has his hand raised. Happy to.
Well, let's see, is he out there?
I don't want to steal his.
There he is.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Mike, you're on.
My apologies for not being in the room. There is a memo in the packet on this item. Brief overview of what we're looking at tonight. About maybe 4 to 5 weeks ago, we had a personal property appraiser take a look at the items that were left behind in the house at 72 Tonsett Road. So items kind of incidental to the purchase. Obviously, it was part of the conveyance, but we purchased the property and the land as the main driving force. So the first thing that that person did was take an inventory of all the items left behind, and is going to provide that inventory with a value for each item. Some items are going to have some artistic value, some historic value specific to Orleans, and those will be denoted on that list, which we should have in hand in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But she did mention going through there a couple hours on site as well as afterward, that there would be nothing in the that she's cataloging that would be of excess value or anything that would that put us in a bucket that would not make the items or contents deemed as surplus. So the memo kind of outlines what that looks like. With the vote tonight, with the motion tonight, it suggests that the items are deemed as surplus. And what that does is it allows the chief procurement officer, which is the town manager, to dispose, auction off, give away, allow town departments to use. If there are town partners, just thinking of Cho, for example, that has an interest in some of the historical items, allows that transfer to take place. All of that will be documented, but it does not fall in a specific procurement bucket for items over the $10,000 threshold.
So Mike, tonight, we don't need to get into any details, right? You just need our vote on declaring it's surplus, but we can still look at the details coming afterwards.
Absolutely. That's a great question. Once we have the report, we'll come back and confirm that all the items do fit that surplus bucket. If there is anything maybe that warrants a second look, or that after her review determined should not be in the surplus bucket, we'll flag that and update the vote. That does not seem to be the case, but we are not closing that door by taking this vote. It just allows us to move forward once we do have that final inventory. And either way, that inventory will be coming here to share with the select board and the public.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, statements?
I just wanted to add, we actually were going to bring this declaration forward right after we purchased the property. But because neither Mike nor I are antique experts of any kind, we really wanted to bring in a company to take a look just to be sure, because it is a bit of an unusual circumstance where a number of items have been left behind. And we know there is some local historic value to some of them, and we absolutely did not want to be a part of accidentally letting something slip away that was of value to the town. So we took a little time and we made sure we had someone come in, and we were surprised. I think because we are not experts, we were surprised that they're you know, it's like being on Antiques Roadshow. But there's a lot of very interesting pieces in there. And I feel honestly relieved that we've had somebody come through, because now we can really move forward the right way, and we can make sure other interested parties on those other artifacts can have them, and we don't have to worry about the value, so to speak, you know. So that's sort of how we got here.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we, pursuant to MGL C30B, Section 15, and C40, Section 3, hereby declare surplus as all personal property acquired incidental to the town's purchase of 72 Tonsett, after determining that such personal property is not needed for municipal purposes. And further authorize the town manager as chief procurement officer to dispose of said surplus property in accordance with the applicable provisions of MGL C30B.
Second?
So have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, just one quick one, and Mike, while we've got you, if it's okay through you, Mr. Chair, since we're talking 72 Tonsett Road, kind of separate from this motion, but while we've got you, what's the status today on access, kayak racks, restricted parking, just in general, so people may have followed this item, but they're not interested in this vote, but they're interested in what's going on out there right now?
Yeah, thank you for asking, and I'll be brief. There's kind of three main points that we push forward for the contents and items. Obviously, this is the motion to have that move forward. For the property itself, it was part of the townwide facilities condition assessment that we are starting to see some of the individual property reports come back, which just from the review that I had of those draft reports has been incredible as far as detail and what is recommended moving forward. So we will have a report on this property as well. That is, some of those property reports are coming in, so we should have those in the next week or so. So give us an idea of what is feasible, likely, and recommended for the property as a whole. As far as the property this spring, summer access, we did install the kayak rack last spring. I believe it is, it's either 9 or 12. I meant to check beforehand, but did not do so. Racks or spots available. That is done through the through a mooring permit through the Natural Resources Office. That is open if you are interested. We have looked with DPW to create more walking connections with the neighboring property to make some of the areas more level, to clear some of the brush that came down in the winter, to make it easier or more accessible. It is I want to say it's steep, but it can be challenging to walk and or take equipment down to the water. So we are trying to both conserve what is there, because it is a wetland area, and to make it as safe and accessible as possible. So they have been out there this spring, and they will continue to do so, both for the cleanup and to make it more accessible. And then as far as the parking, I think you mentioned, Kevin, it is a permit parking only lot. There are 10 or 12 spots currently. There was the ability, or looked like there was the ability to add about 2 more spots. So that was going to be explored to be done this spring into the summer as well. So in summary, we've got the surplus vote tonight. We have the property cleanup and kayak as far as access to the property ongoing. And then within the next week or so, we should have a detailed facilities assessment on that property, which will give us some insight into what our best options are moving forward there.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mike. So we have a motion and a second. Anybody, are you ready to vote? Then by voice, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, so that's 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Mike. The next one, Mark, is the Environmental Sustainability and Climate Action Omnibus Policy. There's got to be an acronym that we can get for that.
I'm afraid to add another one. So before you, there's a printout. We received some lovely comments from Lynn Bruneau today that were incorporated into a red line in front of you. I know that it arrives to you at a late time. I would at least suggest that maybe the board consider adopting section 4 of the policy, which is the time-sensitive component. And that way, there's no need to rush into any changes. What Lynn did provide are, what's in the red line is the comments that I thought Lynn brought that were important to add. So that's what's in there. Lynn has other comments that are beyond what are in your red line that I believe are probably going to create additional conversation that would probably serve to have another workshop for. So that's my recommendation to you folks, is to at least adopt section 4 and then continue conversation on the other components.
So the review of this policy will be ongoing, and as with all policies, we're free to correct them, improve them, change them whenever we wish.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion that we move to adopt the Environmental Sustainability and Climate Action Omnibus Policy with the inserted amendments, recognizing it is subject to further update.
Second.
Further discussion. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I find it tough to, I haven't even been able to read it. So, I mean, I guess looking at section 4, I'd love to hear Lynn's comments, and I appreciate she did this. But I know that we can always go back and change things, but we generally don't, to be frank. And I think if we only need to do section 4 right now, maybe we could just stick to section 4 and give us a chance to read through this.
I think my preference would be to just do the whole thing, but maybe the better thing to do to answer Michael is to sort of commit to a date for the next, the final review of this.
It doesn't seem like, sorry to interrupt, but it doesn't seem like much in here, but if there's going to be another further discussion and more additions and that kind of thing, I would, yeah, I'd feel more comfortable just myself. I'd be happy to vote for the recycling one, if you need that as time sensitive, and kind of all do this at once instead of.
That actually wasn't what I was
Oh,
saying.
sorry.
It was, I'd be okay with voting for this whole policy with the understanding that we would come back in some near time date and finish the editing and correcting that needs to go on with this. I think that would be the most time-efficient way to do this. But that's just me. So anybody else have thoughts?
I'm comfortable with the motion on the table.
So
Which is to reconsider, to schedule a time to reconsider the whole thing. Right.
But vote it all in as one omnibus policy today.
And so that's a motion that's been seconded. Is anybody ready to vote?
Well, just in fairness to everyone, can we pick a date at which point we would do the revisiting so that everyone is
Yeah.
well aware and comfortable knowing that there is a time certain that this will be reviewed again
Yeah.
and go up for another reaffirmation vote or alteration vote?
Okay, so Kim or Mark, do you have a,
Could do it at your next meeting, really.
Okay.
This is ready for conversation, yeah.
June 3rd?
June 3rd?
We'll make sure that Lynn is gonna, well, we can scan in the copy that you have of your comments. Because most of Lynn's comments are on section 11, which is the fertilizer, herbicides, pesticides. Those are where the substantive conversations are gonna happen based on her comments, so.
And Brunel, Seacrest Drive. Michael, just to make a a little more comfortable. Very few on section 4, but for example, at the top of page, what used to be page 4, there's a reference to the operational services division, but it doesn't say who that is. It doesn't say, for example, it doesn't say the state's operational. This was my old copy before the revote.
Red line's in there.
Page you on?
So in section 4.1, 4.2,
Oh, I
right in
see it. Yeah, yeah.
4.2,
No, I'm
reference.
fine. That's fine. That's
Okay, so that's what I'm saying, is very few changes to section 4.
Yeah, that's why I'm good with
Okay,
section 4,
yeah,
but
and
we're not voting on.
Most of the other ones were inconsistencies in structure and the way things were presented, and then we get into 11, and we talk about how tall is the grass, and how much of the detail
I just like.
do we need to have in policies anymore? So it was that sort of thing to begin to focus on when we have more time, to standardize the approach and strategy to a policy. That was what I was working on.
No, I appreciate that, if I may, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I really want to, and I'm glad you're doing that, and I'm excited and positive on this. I just don't want to vote it for myself until section 11. I've spent a lot of time on this over the years. We've spent a lot of time on this as a town. It's being voted in 3 other towns so I just want to take the time, and if there are additional comments, I want to make sure I get to go through them. So that's my feeling.
That's fine.
Well, then maybe you can explain who called it the sole source aquifer, spelled SOUL.
I don't know, but we'll figure that one out. I saw that, and of course, I have no issue with that.
Go ahead, Mark.
Correcting that.
So to Michael's point, the section 11 comments that Lynn had, other than typos, are not incorporated in this red line. So the section 11,
Oh, wait.
section 11 stuff is stuff that has been discussed at workshops and typographical errors that Lynn pointed out. Her substantive comments have not been redlined into section 11.
Okay.
Those are the components you would have a conversation at
So these
future workshop.
these red lines in section 11.4.9 and 11.4.10 that are, where did those come from?
or 9. Those were workshop-related comments that
Select board
the
work.
select board had added
Okay, because I guess.
to
I guess I-
expand those components into
I don't
not just the turf management, but for the encompassing.
Not all board members, as you recall, were at the workshop, so.
I don't remember that, but I'll take your word. So I think what we have here is a motion and a second to approve the policy as we're seeing tonight, but also with the condition that at our June 3rd meeting, we will also go through this and look to clarify, correct, or change anything at all that we come up with.
I think
our own.
that's a fair compromise. Thank you.
So, shall we vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 We'll leave this red line as is, so we won't accept any of these changes so that you can see that for the workshop.
And then, so now we're on to the annual town meeting recap.
I would like to suggest that we table this until a future meeting.
Okay. Just, if people aren't aware, we need to exit this room probably by 10 of 7, because there's another meeting scheduled for 7. Which may be why we're trying to rush things. The consent agenda is next.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a quick note, Mr. Chair, if there might be an applicant that's in the room and might want to speak, not sure if anyone's here on any of the licenses.
Okay. Peggy, is there anybody is there anybody online for this?
No hands raised online.
Okay.
Just wanted to check.
Nobody in the room? Okay.
And I think this is this all for an event? Is this for a First Friday?
It looks like.
It kind of looks like that. I think we want to is that right, Amanda?
Some of them are.
Some of them are?
Yeah, the Sandbar Denim is for two First Friday
8, 4:30
dates.
to 7, okay.
Stephen Gallant is for one of the First Friday dates. Wild Water Collective is all the First Friday dates. Oceana is for all the First Friday dates.
Good, so that's.
Amber Gardens is its
that's
own
going
thing.
forward.
Yeah.
And the only thing I would add in that is that we do have some appreciation for the service of
Yes.
Arnold on the Veterans Committee.
Yes, I've been on the board as long as
For a
I've
long
been
time,
the
yeah.
liaison for the last 5 years. Great person.
Do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
I made the motion.
Dan, was seconded? Okay.
Second.
And so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Which brings us to liaison updates. Why don't we start with you, Michael, and we'll just come.
Sure. I only have really one, was the CPC. We've had a couple meetings and really setting up for next year. Unfortunately, Jennifer Fountain, who has been amazing at the CPC and other things, has resigned.
Just CPC, or because she,
I believe most of her things. She
That's a
has,
loss.
she's done a lot. She was when I was doing the Affordable Housing Trust, she's done great things. So I know Mark knows, and Kim, and we'll find
So
somebody
that's
great.
through June 30th.
Yeah, so hopefully I know you guys will take care of it, but just wanted to mention her and the appreciation of
yeah.
her. What else? We had the finance committee, not finance committee, the finance department. Cedric and Lucas came in, and they've done some great work with Mark and Kim and Darren on the CPC with Joan and the team of kind of really cleaning everything up for the past 4 to 5 years and really getting a clear picture of where we are currently and where we are going forward, and cleaning up outstanding kind of little contracts that hadn't been closed out and all these different things. So it's quite impressive, and they're on a regular system, I think, now with open.gov to be able to update that information. So it's going to be a huge help for that committee. So thank you, guys. That's all I got.
Kevin?
Just a couple. One is kind of our regional working relationship through the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund. If folks are not aware, the governor's environmental bond bill, called the Make Ready Act, is still going through amendment process, I'll call it. There was a batch of amendments, one of which was not friendly to our scoring criteria, where when we submit these project evaluation forms, folks remember at town meeting floor, reason we pushed for funding Article 4 was so we are putting everything into the state in the intended use process for the state revolving fund to get the highest score. There is a provision that seemed to have been inserted in the dark of night, I'll call it, that could dampen our scoring ability to blend it with other in all grants that may be coming through the environmental bond bill. It would be negative. We basically, as a group, and the reason I say it to you because you're part of it as well, basically asking our senators and House Representative folks to strike this language and come back at another time to really talk about it. The other thing, and I'll kind of defer to Mary, who was a former water commissioner 5 hours ago, but the Board of Water Sewer Commission meeting today approved very carefully additional flow for some projects, 2 in Phase 2, 1 in Phase 1. They did have on their agenda, just to make aware, folks, the ZBA Chapter 40B hearing that's opening tonight for Governor Prince, with the realization that we are still under town council review on what waivers or relief they're expecting and who does that. But I had to leave to an appointment, and the room was packed with people. I believe it had to do with the water restrictions. So, Mr. Chair, if I could go to our newest board member to report out. How did that turn out?
It was a little testy.
I bet it
It
was.
was a little testy. So there was a petition that was submitted to the board suggesting that, commenting on the inconsistency amongst the towns in the general area of why certain towns have certain restrictions and others do not. Sue was pretty specific in terms of how different towns have approached it and why. And the request from the folks who were here was to change the restrictions to essentially where we have no watering, no irrigation, to change that to 1 day a week to meet the new level that we are at for the drought, because it has changed since the last time we looked at it. What the board decided was that we would reevaluate it once the state gives us the next review, gives us the next month's level in terms of which level of the drought we are at. I think our concern is that we didn't really want to end up with 1 month we would have one set of restrictions, the next month we have a different set of restrictions, because I don't even want to think about how that would work. I think the second thing was that there is concern that our well levels are still below the trigger point where we are concerned about having the right amount of water, and to think that we are going to go into our highest use time with everybody coming into town, that there was concern about saying, well, gee, because right now the drought situation looks better, that we should automatically ease the water restrictions. So we agreed to reconsider it at the next meeting.
So nothing's changed now?
Nothing has changed, correct?
That's all I've got. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
Any, Mark?
Just a couple of quick notes. Some of the committees defer their meetings until after town meeting, but Shellfish and Waterways is one of them that's meeting tomorrow instead of meeting earlier this past week, last week, actually. But two things. Rock Harbor project is essentially complete. They're doing the mad scramble down there. They had put in one last bit of concrete work with a drain that didn't go well, so they were redoing it today. So until that's done, they can't actually use the offloading ramp, but that should be done by tomorrow at the latest, I think. I was down there today checking it out. They do have it redone. They have to do one quick pour around it. And then that ramp will be, the offloading dock will be usable by all the boats that are there. The harbor's starting to fill up. The paving binder has been put down. I think they're doing some slight changes in grading, so the drains all work and the manholes are at the proper levels and stuff. But everything is close to being wrapped up. And they're looking for people in town that may have any memorabilia or photographs of Rock Harbor from back in the day, you know, the 40s, the 50s, or whatever. You can contact either Nate Sears at the Harbor Master's office or people on the Shellfish and Waterways Advisory Committee. They're trying to put together some things. They've had some people volunteer to make plaques or boards or whatnot so they can display any of this memorabilia or photographs, so that when people do come down to the harbor to visit, they'll be able to see some of the history of that place. And just so that you know, it's kind of on the agenda of the shoaling that's down at Powwa Pond, which is one of our major landing areas for grant holders for shellfish licenses in Pleasant Bay, and, you know, how we can address that shoaling and whether we need to start looking at some type of minor dredging project there just to clean that out and open it up. So that's all I've got for now.
I had meetings with the Transportation and Bikeways and the Conservation Commission, and they were just routine business. There's nothing special to report out. And with that, anything else for liaisons? You're nodding your head?
Yes, sorry. I probably should have said this earlier, but I don't normally have announcements, but this is the perfect time since it's coming out tomorrow. Residents are invited to attend Nauset Public Schools Efficiency and Regionalization Study presentations. Over the past year, representatives from the town of Brewster, Orleans, Eastham, and Wellfleet, in partnership with the Nauset Public School officials, have been engaged in a district-wide study to better understand how to sustain strong schools in the face of declining enrollment, aging facilities, and rising costs. This work focused on our 5 elementary schools and the middle school. It includes detailed analysis of school buildings, enrollment trends, and educational programming, along with input from community members, school leaders, and staff across all 4 towns. Together, this input helped shape a shared set of priorities that define what a thriving school looks like in Nauset. This is what will be shared at the presentation. Critical data and key findings from the assessment of facilities, enrollment, and programs. 4 regionalization scenarios that reflect different ways that the district could organize schools, programs, and resources. Other potential efficiency considerations, including governance and programming approaches that are not directly tied to a particular scenario. What this study is and what the study is not. This study does not make specific recommendations or decisions. It is a first step in a long-range planning process that will take years to work through. The scenarios are tools to support discussion and future decision-making. The merits of each are examined. Any decisions about changes to schools or district structure will be made by the individual towns and Nauset Public Schools. No immediate impacts. This study does not include the high school. Join us for final presentations. All presentations are open to the public. They will start at 6 p.m. and will be held at the town hall in each community. Residents can attend in person or via Zoom. Check town websites for specific remote login information. The presentations will be live streamed and recorded. There will be joint sessions of the Select Board and the School Committee from each respective town. The content will be the same at each meeting. Tuesday, June 2nd, Orleans Town Hall. Wednesday, June 3rd, Wellfleet Town Hall. Thursday, June 4th, Brewster Town Hall. Monday, June 8th, Eastham Town Hall. These sessions are an opportunity to learn about the study findings and better understand the range of possible paths forward. It will also highlight potential next steps for the towns and school leaders. For more information, visit the project website. The steering committee for this initiative is comprised of the following individuals: Brewster, Carolyn McCarley from the Select Board, Katie Miller Jacobs from the School Committee, Peter Lombardi, the Town Manager. From the Town of Orleans, Kevin Galligan from the Select Board, Gail Briere from the School Committee, and Kim Newman, Town Manager. Eastham, Jerry Cesarle, Select Board, Sarah Higgins, School Committee, Jackie Beebe, Town Manager. Wellfleet, Barbara Carboni, Select Board, Martha Gordon, School Committee, Tom Garino, Town Administrator. And from the Nauset District, we have Glenn Brand, Superintendent, and Judith Schumacher, Regional School Committee. This project is funded with the state grant and financial contributions from all 4 communities. Please join us.
Could I just add, kind of a liaison, but it's not, only, as Kim mentioned, there's
6 p.m.
Monday, Orleans Elementary School, Gail Briere, who's on the Efficiency Realization Committee, reported out exactly the same thing, but I really wanted to say to all of us, they honored, recognized, and thanked Gail for her years of service, because that was her last meeting. The room was full of teachers, and Hadley Luddy, our representative, was here to give her a tribute. It was really well done. So when you do see Gail out and about, just do thank her for her incredible service, both as principal, but also her years on the school committee.
So this information will be posted online tomorrow. Please attend any one of the meetings in any of the communities. Everyone is welcome. A lot of work has been done here.
So it's, if I may, Mr. Chair, it's Tuesday the 2nd here.
Tuesday the 2nd, there's a meeting here in Orleans, but if,
It's going to be the duplicate, same meeting.
exactly.
Okay, so as
can
long
go-
as for Orleans people, they come here Tuesday.
You
the
can
2nd.
go anyone they want to that works with their schedule.
And you said it's going to be in conjunction with the select board? Like, are we having a select board meeting that night too?
Well, we're going to post because I assume that there'll be a quorum here for ours. But the only item on there would be this one, and they will do the presentation, the
No
consulting firm.
vote for us, no discussion?
No.
Just to watch a presentation?
Correct,
Okay, and then we have our meeting the next night?
The next thing.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Last thing is future agenda items, anybody?
So many, but we can wait.
Okay. Then, the important motion.
Chair, I would move to adjourn at 6:44 PM.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.